candidate forum, the second one, the two Illinoisans, John Hess, running for District 1 Supervisor. I see a lot of familiar faces here, a lot of faces, guys that I played 20 league baseball with. Later became supervisors themselves. Jim Comstock. We have our current supervisor. Moat, where are you? Somewhere back in the back. We got our mayor of Clear Lake is here, David Coffey, and a lot of other folks that are definitely important to this area. Rock Falkenberg, our superintendent of schools for the county. Another supervisor, Bruno Sabatier, is our cameraman. We'll be doing the video tonight. We have Monica Rosenthal, which will be keeping the time. Elizabeth Larson is our moderator for this event, and will also, by the way, be the moderator for another candidate forum that we'll be holding in Clear Lake for the Clear Lake Council candidates next month, October 16th. Anyhow, here at Clear Lake Community Action Group, we always start our meetings by saluting our flag. So if you would, and followed by a prayer. So if you would please stand for the pledge, and then remain standing afterwards for the prayer. David, would you lead us in the prayer?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Pastor John from our War Lake Community Methodist Church will be leading us in prayer.
Heavenly Spirit, we ask you to be with us as we come to find out about our community, work together for the better good. You made us creatures of social needs. Therefore, we need to be together, to work together, to accomplish anything together. Lord, watch over us, and we will hear words of truth and honesty, and be filled with our questions. In Jesus' name, amen.
If you see it. Okay, I'm going to introduce now Elizabeth Larson is going to take over from here. She'll explain the way the forum will work, and we'll listen.
Thank you, Russ. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you very much. Okay, so we've got these funny little things over here. We've got the little lapel mics don't work, so we put them on pens so that we can just easily hold them. So thank you, John and Helen, for showing up tonight. So the format is going to be this. We're going to they're each going to start off with opening statements. They'll get 2 minutes for an opening statement. They're going in alphabetical order. Then we're going into the questions, and we have more than 20 questions. We have been deluged with great questions from all of you. So we're going to try to get through as many as we can tonight. At the end, and we're going to go, we did a coin toss, and so John will start off. We'll start with him, and then we'll go to Helen, and we'll rotate back and forth based on the coin toss. At the end, we'll do closing statements, 2 minutes each again, and Helen will start that. So fairly straightforward, and so we're just going to get started because I know a lot of you want to hear from them. That's why you're here, other than the good food that Mike and everybody made in the kitchen. So we're going to start with the opening statements. This is just their way of warming up, telling you who they are before we dive into the questions. And we'll start with John.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Greetings, everyone. It's a crowded house. I feel a little warm at the moment, but the AC will kick in. And I appreciate you all being here. I'm John Hess. I'm a Hidden Valley Lake resident of almost 12 years. And is this working? Can you hear me okay? I bring a wealth of diverse experience to the District 1 race. In addition to being a small business owner, I spent 2 decades on Capitol Hill working on national security and economic issues and constituent service. Once I was a senior advisor to 2 senators, one a Democrat, one a Republican, and later chief of staff for a congresswoman from Los Angeles. And along the way, built strong relationships with state, county, and local officials. After leaving Capitol Hill, I chose to make Lake County my home, drawn here by fond childhood memories of the area. I'm proud of my work as a planning commissioner over the last 8 years, where we set the tone and anticipate what comes next for the county. My most important priorities are building new housing, repairing our roads, being technology ready to attract new businesses and offer well-paying jobs to county residents, especially our young people. I'm sure most of you have seen the fiber optic cable being laid into the ground and into the roads south of Middletown. Also protecting Clear Lake and fire safety. As a commissioner, I've developed a deep understanding of the issues confronting District 1 and the entire county, and established relationships with county department heads and staff, the new sheriff, as well as local CAL FIRES officials. I'm also a board member of the local nonprofit group Hammers for Hope, which does home repairs and renovations for qualified individuals and families. My entire career has been devoted to community service, and even in these divided, polarized times, I still deeply believe that public service is a worthy pursuit. I will hit the ground running and be ready to work on day one. It will be much hard work, but together we can accomplish very much too. For more information about me, please visit hessforsupervisor.com.
Thank you, John. Helen. Oh, and I should say one thing. Monica Rosenthal is doing the timekeeping, so you will see her raise cards, yellow and red cards, and that is to signal the two speakers to start to wrap it up or to stop. Okay? Go ahead, Helen.
You won't need the red or yellow one. I'm a local girl, Helen Owen, from South Lake County, born and raised here. My family's been here since about the mid-1800s. One of the things I really appreciate about this area is the community. You just can't find another place like this anywhere. The sense of community, taking care of each other, what we do for each other, our kids. So I am running to help preserve that, preserve our waters, preserve, I believe that we should all be taking care of our I do this. I'm not a politician, I'm a citizen. So I end up getting nervous and not catching my words. But anyway, I believe we are a steward of the lands here, and we need to preserve those things here. I'd like to thank the Lower Lake Action Group for having us out. I'd like to thank Bruno for videoing and Elizabeth for moderating. So that's it.
That was, she fulfilled a campaign promise by not making her flash the card at her.
There you go.
Okay, so let's get started. There's a lot of questions to cover, so we're going to start with John. Again, remember, 2 minutes for each. First question. This is a multi-part. If at any point you need me to reread them, please ask, and it doesn't count against your time. How has your experience prepared you for the job of county supervisor? What's your greatest strength? And what have you done to prepare for the position so you can be ready on day one? And can you please offer some specific examples?
It's a lot in 2 minutes. I referred to my experience in my opening remarks about understanding how government works at all levels, about building relationships with the stakeholders that elected officials work with. I'm not a politician. I'm running for office. I haven't won anything yet. And the time that I spent in Washington, D.C. and making those connections and building on them and providing essential services, whether it's Veterans Affairs, Social Security, or Medicare, I know how to solve problems for constituents. And I think that's one of the most important obligations of any elected official. I've been a planning commissioner for the last 8 years, and that not only has that given me an intense, deep understanding of the entire county, but particularly of District 1. And I know we'll be touching on a lot of the very local issues tonight. I think combined with my knowledge of the area, my experience professionally, my work as a county planning commissioner, and the support that I know I have across a broad spectrum of voters, whether it's conservative, independent, liberal, or moderate. And that's something I cherish and I'm proud of. I can work with people, and I will work across the aisle and be bipartisan. And that's why I think I'm the best candidate in the race.
Thank you. Do you need me to repeat any of
Yes,
them?
please.
Okay. How has your experience prepared you for the job of county supervisor? What's your greatest strength? And what have you done to prepare for this position so you can be ready on day one? And can you please give some specific examples?
Okay, experience. I have experience in the county with the people, knowing how things have worked here, which direction we want the county to go in. That's kind of huge. One of the things I really pride myself on is going out and talking to you, because I don't know what's on everybody's mind. So I do go to functions, and I do talk to the people here and the people out in the communities to see what it is that they're worried about. It's been across the board as far as which area you're in, what the actual issues are, and I've enjoyed that. I do want to represent the people of South County, and the entire county for that matter. And as far as the strengths, I think working with the people and being able to work, going out, doing the investigating, doing the legwork, that's something I really enjoy doing. I've been doing exactly that for the last, 8 months or so. And so I think I'm ready.
Thank you. Okay, question 2. And we'll start with Helen. If elected, what will you focus on in your first month on the board?
I think one of the biggest issues that I've heard over and over again is the roads. That's one of them. Right now, we're actually working on the water project at the Gwinnett, where they're trying to move the water from Middletown to the Gwinnett Ranch. I am opposed to moving the water, and I think that that's kind of a nearsighted subject. So that's not something we want to see happen there. The roads, I've already filled out a complaint for the Lower Lake area, Lake Street, going past the school. So I'm actually already out there trying to see what I can do. Whether I get in or not, I've always been somebody that wanted to help in the community. I do a lot with the kids. We do horse programs. Those that don't know me, I do have Owing Ranch, and we've done horse programs. I've managed Hidden Valley Stables for 12 years, and while I was there, we put together many programs for the kids at Hidden Valley, including pumpkin patches and etc. Reaching throughout the county, not just in our local area, right there at Hidden Valley or Middletown. So, I think, what was the rest of it?
That was it. That was a short one. Thank you. John, if elected, what will you focus on in your first month on the board?
Well, I admire your very ambitious first month, Helen. That's a lot to manage. I think my first month will be spent looking inward rather than outward. I've built strong relationships with county department heads and staff already. I've sat down with the administrator for housing. I've met with Sheriff Bingham. I've met with the road superintendent, and obviously know the community development department well as a planning commissioner. And I just want to sit down with each of those department heads, look inward, figure out our common agendas, see how they're planned for a hearing with the FY 2024-25 budget, which has been approved by the supervisors, is working, and then look outward. But I think that first month and just being ready to hit the ground running involves having those relationships, important relationships with county government and the people that work in it.
Thank you. Next question. Question 3. We'll start with John. This is also a multi-part. Will you be a full-time supervisor with no other outside employment duties? If you have a current occupation or business, how will you hand it off? What number of hours per week do you think this job will take to adequately perform?
Politics is a 24/7 kind of game, and I'm very accustomed to that world given the work that I've done in Washington. I think it's at least 6 days a week, and evenings, maybe some weeks it's 7 days a week. But it is absolutely full-time, and I am prepared to completely devote myself to the role of supervisor. I'm currently a planning commissioner, as I've mentioned, and you'll hear me mention again, but I would immediately resign from the planning commission and focus on appointing the next planning commissioner for District 1. I would have no other obligations besides my obligations to the people of District 1 and the county, and my dog.
What is the dog's name?
Kai.
Kai. It's always important for me personally, just to know who his dog is. Okay, Helen, let me repeat this because there's several parts to it. Will you be a full-time supervisor with no other outside employment duties? If you have a current occupation or business, how will you hand it off? And what number of hours per week do you think this job will take to adequately perform?
I wonder who that was geared towards. Yes, it is a full-time job. As far as handing off my business, the Owen Ranch, we've already pretty much done that. My daughter's been working with me for several years. She's taken over the ranch. So that explains that. As whether it's full-time, yes, I believe it is full-time. And I think it's also kind of a way of life. As far as being ambitious, yeah, I'm ambitious, and I'm already working for you. I'm already seeing what I can do, and I don't mind doing that. I believe that we can chew gum and walk at the same time. So, was there another portion of that? That's it.
Thank you. Question 4, we start with Helen. How will you be similar to or different from your predecessor in the District 1 supervisorial seat?
I think listening to the people, answering my phone, would be probably one of the things I'll do. I'll make myself accessible. I always have. So I'm thinking that would be the difference, is I will be willing to talk to the public and listen to the public openly.
Okay, thank you. John, how will you be similar to or different from your predecessor in the District 1 supervisorial seat?
I have a lot of admiration for my friend Moke Simon and the work he's done over the last 8 years on his own, but also with the board. You don't get anywhere unless you know how to work with your board members and build a majority for the agenda that you want for the county and for your district. And I've seen him at work, and I've seen him lay the groundwork for that. And 8 years into this experience, it's starting to pay real dividends, whether it's housing, whether it's clean energy. There's just so many things that Moke and his colleagues have been involved in getting us started in, and finding the grant funding to go forward, since we simply can't afford everything out of our general fund. I believe politicians, elected officials' highest responsibility is to be accessible and responsive to the voters and to the constituents, and I will be on a 24/7 basis. I also intend to hold regular office hours throughout the district, just because I think it's appropriate to meet people in their own neighborhoods and in their own homes, and not necessarily have to make the trek up to Lakeport in order to do that. And I also believe that I've learned a lot from Moke and the other supervisors in terms of how to build those coalitions and how to agree upon a common agenda, maybe not on every detail, but you're not going to get anywhere as a supervisor just sitting alone in the corner.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with John. What do you consider the biggest challenges facing the Lower Lake community?
I think in many ways it's the same challenges that affect and face all the communities in District 1. Certainly fire safety is a big one, and we dodged a bullet here in Lower Lake just a month and a half or so ago on Main Street. There was a scary fire. And we all have to face those challenges, and we all have to be fire ready, and we have to take care of our own property. And as we take care of our own property, we are making it safer for our neighbors and our community members as well.
Just the biggest challenges?
Yes. There are many things that are special and unique to Lower Lake as well. The historic schoolhouse is in need of renovation and repair and upgrades. Maintaining the cemeteries here, which is something that I know Moke Simon did with Russ Kramer and others as well. making it as business friendly as can be. I actually think Lower Lake is doing a fantastic job with its Main Street, whether it's Lower Lake Days, which was pretty hard to beat this year. But you can feel a vibe on Main Street, and there are businesses, and they do appear to be thriving, and there's a diverse type of business. And I think keeping that going and keeping the community growing while retaining its unique character is essential. But those are all things that a supervisor can be part of and help with.
Thank you. Helen, what do you consider the biggest challenges facing the Lower Lake community?
Lower Lake, I think what I've heard is one of the things is roads. I know that as Mr. Hess had mentioned, the old schoolhouse museum does need to be renovated, and I know that at one time that they had the money in there, and whatever happened to it, it didn't happen. That was some years back. So we need to hold true and start taking care of our history. The school road, Lake Street, as I already mentioned, I sent in a complaint about that last week, and I think that there needs to be more signage there for protecting our students before somebody gets hurt. So that's something that, we really need to do. I know that they have been struggling and trying to get some attention there, haven't done it. The water resources, I know that there's some areas out Morgan Valley area, as well as I believe it is on 29 south of Twin Lakes. I think that there's some water issues in that area. We need to get some water infrastructures put in place for some of that.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Helen. Since both of you brought this up, let's spend a few more minutes on it. There were plans as far back as 2008 with funds reportedly allocated for the seismic retrofitting of the Lower Lake Historic Schoolhouse Museum. The county put the project on hold and it has not been completed. The cost has now been more than doubled, and with other restoration included is reportedly approaching $4 million. Do you support this project going forward, and what priority would you give it? And in addition to the schoolhouse, what would you do to enhance the historic preservation of Lower Lake's Main Street? And again, we start with Helen. The main part of the question is the county put the seismic retrofit on hold. It's now approaching $4 million. And do you support the project going forward, and what priority would you give it?
Yeah, I would absolutely give it a high priority. Is it speaking? Okay. So I would absolutely support this, and I think it's a shame that it didn't get done when they had the monies, but it didn't. So going back to the drawing table and sending in and looking for the grants to get that done, I think is really important to this community. As far as the Main Street, I think they're doing a fabulous job down here. I would again be talking to, as I have been actually, the members here, the community members, and seeing where the priorities are. I've been to the water board meetings, I've been to a number of other meetings. So yeah, talking to the community, seeing what it is that they're needing.
Thank you. Do you need any of that repeated?
No, thanks.
Okay.
One of the very first meetings I had when I declared my candidacy was with Russ Kramer to sit down and talk about Lower Lake. And it was much more of an interrogation than it was a conversation.
Not right.
But it was a very useful conversation. And one of the first things that we discussed was the schoolhouse museum, and how back in 08, 07 era, Congressman Mike Thompson had even been brought into the conversation and seemed amenable to finding some funds to begin this process. Then, of course, 07, 08 was when the big recession hit. Things got pushed on the back burner that were essential for keeping a community or a county alive.
Closer to the mic.
Sorry about that, very sorry. And I believe the money is available, but it's going to take real cooperation with Congressman Thompson. Our two senators are very, very junior, and one is only temporary. And the way the Senate works is seniority helps. And Mr. Thompson is a very senior member of the House, and I think I've known him for 20 years, and I'm pleased that he's endorsed me. And I think it's worth using a little bit of political capital to get that done and to make that a priority. It's been too long, and it's just too important a precious asset. As Russ Kramer said that day, the beautiful items inside the museum are just as important as the building itself.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with John. The revision of the county general plan is now in progress and will undoubtedly come before the Board of Supervisors during the next term. Can you please describe your plans for engaging in this process and the key principles you support when guiding future growth?
Yes, it's about time. When I first became a planning commissioner 8 years ago, this was one of the highest priority items, and we're only now turning that page and opening up that chapter on updating the general plan, but also all of the local area plans. And we're doing that all at once rather than in some kind of order. And Lower Lakes is one of the most important to update. I think the last update is from 1988 and doesn't mention a lot of things that are relevant today in terms of development, in terms of priorities. The Planning Commission will also have a hand in any of the general plan updates and area plans as well, simply because it's a process of presenting these things to the supervisors. This is all linked to a much greater vision and a program called Lake County 2020. You can go to lakecounty2020.org, and it's about 2050. It's about the vision for the future. There was no such document or concept in place when Moke Simon first became a supervisor, and we're making real progress now. There's been one meeting already, virtual and in parts of the community, on the general plan, and they're just about to start the second round of those community meetings, and I encourage you all to participate. There's also a survey at that very same website, lakecounty2050.org, and the more input and the more information that people are willing to provide is really going to help inform the entire process. I've taken the survey. It's actually kind of interesting, and I would encourage everybody here to do that and help move this process going forward and attend those upcoming meetings on the general plan and the local area plans.
Thank you. Helen, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes,
Okay.
it's a general plan.
The revision of the county general plan is now in progress and will undoubtedly come before the Board of Supervisors during the next term. Can you please describe your plans for engaging in this process and the key principles you support when guiding future growth?
I'm proud to say that I actually did take part in the area plan, the previous one for the Middletown area and Hidden Valley. So I was one of only 2 people, I think, that were on both the Hidden Valley, and then it merged into the Middletown area plan. And that was back prior to Hidden Valley even having a zip code, because that was one of the things that was talked about at that plan. The Lower Lake area plan is 35 years old, so it's in desperate need. I had came to the meeting here, the first meeting, the area plan meeting, here in Lower Lake, and the next day we were in Middletown at that one, and it was pretty crazy how similar the issues were in both communities as far as keeping this country lifestyle and keeping this close-knit community, and all the same things, many of the same things were echoed at the Middletown meeting that we had actually talked about the night before here in Lower Lake. So that was pretty cool. Since I did already participate on the area plan, I have a pretty good idea of what it does entail, and I do plan on continuing and going to the future meetings for all of our areas, District 1, all of District 1, which would be the Lower Lake. And this year we actually have part of Clear Lake in our district, which is pretty cool. Can you believe that? I just got a yellow sign on top of that. So we do have part of Clear Lake, so I think I'm going to need to spend some more time in the Clear Lake area. Thank you.
Next question, we'll start with Helen. This is multi-part, and I'm going to read this. This came in from a Hidden Valley Lake resident. Hidden Valley Lake is a very important part of Lake County and is also a tremendous source of property tax revenue for the county. How will you, if elected as a county supervisor this fall, assist Hidden Valley Lake with the tremendous infrastructure challenges they face, such as fixing their dangerous levee, reducing their risk of wildfires, and removing the ever-increasing lake sediment that is building in their lake? And what can they expect in the form of assistance and cooperation as they look to address these important issues?
You know, I had changed my plans to actually go to the levy meeting with the CAL FIRE when they were meeting. And I was told because I'm not a member, I couldn't go. So that was unfortunate because it was something I really wanted to do. So as far as the levee goes, that area, I had spent my entire life pretty much down in the creek area there. I was raised on Grange Road, and I still spend a great deal of time down in the creek during the summertime. So it does mean a lot to me, and I do want to know what needs to be done and just how severe it is. I have been looking into it. I have talked to some of the state department heads at the county when I was going to the supervisor meetings, and there is some money available for those type of things. And it was the cleaning of the creeks as well, the taking out some of the vegetation that has grown up. There is funding in those areas, so going back through and making those contacts is going to be important, and that's something that we do need to do, and I'm very interested. I live right there on P.E.G Creek myself. Actually, it goes through my property on the west side of the bridge. So yeah, all about it.
Want to repeat that? No. Okay, if elected as a county supervisor, how will you assist Hidden Valley Lake with the tremendous infrastructure challenges they face, such as fixing their dangerous levee, reducing risk of wildfires, and removing the ever-increasing lake sediment that's building in their lake? And what can they expect in the form of assistance and cooperation as they look to address these important issues?
Thanks, Elizabeth. Yeah, well, obviously I'm a Hidden Valley Lake resident. These problems are very familiar to me and are in fact plaguing some neighbors and friends of mine who live in the so-called flats, where in addition to all the other kinds of insurance you need to carry, you have to have flood insurance. And these are serious problems. Hidden Valley Lake has its own board, the board of directors, and manages the community in much the same way elected officials in an incorporated city would. Yes, the issues that require serious attention are fire protection and the condition of the levee, restoring areas that have washed out, and removing trees and debris that clog P.E.G Creek. I've walked the levee with the Community Services Director and seen the areas of most concern. As supervisor, I would engage the Community Services District and HOA Board to discuss how best to proceed, including applying for FEMA BRIC grants. BRIC stands for Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities, grant funding, and FEMA Flood Mitigation Program funds as a starting point. In the last fiscal year, BRIC's available funding was $1 billion, and $800 million was available for flood mitigation assistance. These funds would help state, local, and tribal governments address future risks to natural disasters, foster resilience, and reduce disaster suffering. Regarding clearing P.E.G Creek, it's really very interesting. I applaud the supervisor's efforts over the last few years to promote bioenergy and biochar production that will create an ongoing source of clean energy that can be sold on the grid or to PG&E, using the county's enormous amounts of waste woody biomass. Some 20,000 dead trees are currently standing in District 101, not to mention those that are burned or clogging creeks and streams, and chamise and Scotch broom are part of that. The county has in fact qualified for funding that will lead to long-term benefits that will accrue to the stakeholders, including our environment, tribes, our risk reduction authority, and the county's bottom line. Making clean energy out of materials that constitute a major fire danger is a win-win. As far as the lake goes, the drought we've had has made it impossible to dredge currently, but there's plenty of water in the lake now.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with John. Do you believe the county has a role in making sure Lake County residents can obtain adequate fire insurance for a reasonable rate?
That's a very tough question, and technically I'm not sure I know the ins and outs of how a county could help reduce people's home insurance, fire insurance rates across the board. I mean, obviously, fire safety, defending creating defensible spaces, hardening our homes, all of those things, I think those are things that individual homeowners can do to reduce the burden of fire and home insurance. I lost my home insurance, like so many of you in this room, I'm sure, and so many of my friends and neighbors, and it's more costly every time you go back to cover your property. I believe in alliances, regional alliances, and I think counties like Lake and other northern rural counties can have a voice if we band together and speak with one voice when it comes to insurance companies and doing the right thing. I think there's really strength in numbers, and that's a project I would like to lead in terms of creating that kind of regional alliance and going to the state and making the best case we can. But it's not going to be easy. I know the state insurance commissioner is currently considering changes to the rules that are really not quite well explained yet, but that he thinks will bring some insurers back into the state, obviously at higher rates than we're currently paying. And that's that.
Thank you. Helen, do you believe the county has a role in making sure Lake County residents can obtain adequate fire insurance for a reasonable rate?
Well, I'm really not sure exactly how much it will pull. This is a state problem, and it's actually, much of it has been created by the state. The issues have been created by the state. And I had a good conversation the other night with Mr. Brown, Rob Brown, and some of the things he had mentioned were, I know that E.G, I think, had brought in kind of like it's not a meet and greet, but kind of like that kind of a format, and brought in some smaller agencies, smaller insurance agencies for people to meet them where they can get some insurance here. And that's one of the issues. The other issue is when I said to create the state bureaucracy actually helped to create this issue. That's absolutely true. One of the things that I wasn't aware of that they had done was they were weighing out, during the Mullet Valley fire, they were weighing out the amount of debris taken off each parcel. So you'd have a lot of trucks with smaller amounts of debris, and they were paying big wages for union wages for out of state and people coming in to make those cleanups. So when that happens, it wasn't as cheap as it could have been for the insurance companies. The insurance companies had to pay for it, and they really went under during all these fires. So I think some of our issues are actually self-created here, not by us, but by the bureaucracy.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Helen. What infrastructure plans would you work to implement at the county level to deal with a growing population, schools over capacity, and safety issues along county roads near schools?
We need to invest in our roads, for one thing. You know, I had somebody coming down, can you hear me? Somebody coming down from Six Sigma the other day, and they were traveling down, what is that? The road? Spruce Grove, thank you. Spruce Grove, and they actually blew out their tire just coming to see me to go riding. So we really need to work on our roads, the infrastructure. We need to start investing in that. One of the areas that I'm really proud of is what Clear Lake is currently doing with taking the time and the money and the investment into fixing their roads. They're doing a great job, and we need to take a page from them, and we need to start investing. I think some of these monies that are coming in could be spent more wisely than what they are in the county. For instance, the monies for the pot coming in from the cannabis, that is being given currently out, and they can hand it out freely to different organizations, nonprofits in the community. In order to get a loan, we need to have some of that money in the bank rather than handing it out, so that we can get the loans to take care of this infrastructure issues. I know that there's also some infrastructure issues within the in the septics and the water, and that's something that also does need to be addressed. And so yeah, that's something I'm ready to tackle.
John, what infrastructure plans would you work to implement at the county level? Deal with a growing population, schools over capacity, and safety issues along county roads near schools?
Sure. I hope these similar questions come up because I have a lot to say about this here, but I'm not sure I can cover this space in just a couple of minutes. But I've met with the road superintendent, a guy named Jim Hale. He's a great guy, and he's overseeing the road improvements, the pavement repair plan. And it's a 10-year program. They've identified about 300 miles of our roads that need to be repaired and made more safe. And the cost of that is about $300 million. Just to put that in perspective, the FY 24-25 county budget is $396 million. So where's all that money going to come from? There's only enough funding for the first 2 years. But we have to focus on the roads. The Caltrans has a corridor plan from the county border up to Lower Lake, and you'll be seeing more changes between Lower Lake and Lakeport as well over the next 2 phases of that project. But that's really important too, just to make sure they're going to be reconfiguring the parking area and the approach to Middletown High School and make that a lot safer and a lot less congested, just as an example. And there's also housing. We desperately need housing. We've been in a deficit even before the Valley Fire, and it's only worse now. As we grow, and I do anticipate a decade of growth, not scary growth, but growth we have to anticipate and do wisely. And that's going to take a lot of money. The current housing administrator has developed a housing action implementation plan called HYPE, and it's got a deadline of December, but they will get it done. They're doing a variety of things. They're studying how to encourage development, coordinating the community development department, reaching out to developers in and out of Lake County, discussing developer tax credits, creating a developers portal, analyzing possible sites for construction, increasing the number of accessory dwelling units, identifying all available grant funding, and more. But they have a tall order facing them, and we'll just have to work together to get it done. But that's the most important infrastructure, I think.
Thank you. Next question starts with, Clear Lake is the most important asset in Lake County. Algae, cyanobacteria, and toxins have become an increasing problem to the economic well-being of the county. How would you, as a county supervisor, work to control this problem both in the short term and in the long term?
There's no doubt it's a gem of the entire county. It's our most important natural asset. People argue about just how old it might be, but it was there before the Great Lakes were there. And it's a unique lake in terms of its size, in terms of how shallow it is. And there's a natural cycle that goes along with that kind of a configuration. And that means algae at certain times of the year. And sometimes it's really bad and it's smelly and it's even dangerous for humans and or dogs that might want to be swimming in the lake. And yet I don't think the goal should be to eliminate all algae all the time, because that's not the lake's natural cycle, and we can't interrupt that either. There's a project that Supervisor Sabatier has been promoting and talking about called Algae Sonic, which there's a pilot program that could be implemented any time now. And without getting into a lot of detail in 2 minutes, it would stir in the shallower areas of the lake in the arms where it's going to be tested first. It would make the water move and rotate the water, breaking up the chance for the algae to ever develop. And I think the county should continue to invest in that and see what the first results of that pilot program are. But that could be very encouraging. There's also all kinds of access to the lake in terms of natural flows of water, creek streams returning to the lake and restoring the regular flow that could help flush out toxins and all the rest. But it's essential to tourism, and it's not just bass fishing, it's recreational boating, it's not commercial fishing, it's recreational fishing, and it's got to be protected and it's got to be preserved. I wasn't too happy with the recent photographs from outer space that NASA put out there that showed the lake glowing bright green, which didn't really even reflect reality. That had a lot to do with filters on their satellite cameras and all the rest. But it was a black eye that Lake County and Clear Lake did not deserve.
Thank you. So does Kai like to swim?
Yes.
Yes.
Especially in this hot summer.
Okay. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes.
Okay. Algae, cyanobacteria, and toxins have become an increasing problem to the economic well-being of the county. How would you as a county supervisor work to control this problem both in the short term and the long term?
Okay, I was actually at the science symposium about the lake this last weekend. It was in Robinson Rancheria on the other side of the lake, and we had a lot of scientists, and it's studied all throughout the United States. We had people come in from all over. It was very impressive. That was on Thursday, and Friday was the symposium. So that was a pretty good eye-opener, and learning what we can and cannot do, basically as far as what they know as of right now. Because it's a shallow lake, it's going to create more algae than, say, the Great Lakes or something that's much deeper. We have a unique little gem here that we need to preserve. I know that right now some of it is they're planting the tulies back in areas where they had been removed, and that should help. Right now that will also help with the hitch, because they'll have a place to hide in those tulies and not get ate. So that's kind of a cool thing. It was very informative this weekend. What's the rest of the question?
How would you as a county supervisor work to control the problem both in the short and long term?
You know, I'm not the expert in that area, but I am smart enough to find those that are. So I'm going to have to, I would be looking at those that have some ideas to try. I know I was at a Clear Lake meeting, and one of the things that they had brought up at the city of Clear Lake was filtering some of the waters. And I think that there's a number of things that are out there that can help with it. I know that they're going to be cleaning up the arm where the quicksilver mines are that are currently leaking into the lake right now. And that is ongoing. It's currently happening, and it's going to happen for the next few years. So that can also help make that lake safer.
Thank you. Okay, the next question, we'll start with Helen. What programs that the county has begun are you excited to build on and continue to develop?
I think the one I was most pleased with was the law enforcement doing the crackdowns on Highway 20, where a lot of our young people are being trafficked. They have started using that, taking care of that area and getting them stopped. And I didn't realize that human trafficking was such a big issue here, but it really is. And one of the, I guess apparently Highway 20 is connecting I-5 corridor to 101. And that seems to be one of their ways of travel. And so they've really put in some good stuff in that area as far as the police, and they're moving it down, and they're taking out some of the drug paraphernalia as well as the human trafficking. So that's probably one of the things I would think was real positive.
Thank you. John, what programs that the county has begun are you excited to build on and continue to develop?
Sure, there's a whole host of them, and I think they're all equally important in many ways. Fire safety has to continue. We have to continue educating. We have to continue raising funds and getting more money to harden our properties and to make everybody safe. I think that's a no-brainer, and I think that the county has done a very good job in terms of community education, and that must continue. The pavement repair program, expensive as it is, it's essential. One of the things that's making it work so well in Clear Lake right now is Measure V, a local ballot measure that was passed that does increase what people pay, but it does also allow them to pave many, many miles of roads. Here in Lake County, we're just starting that program. That will all be contracted out in terms of the first 2 years that I mentioned before for the 10-year plan. And the rest of that, the county does really only focus on chip sealing. And that will also improve the pavement condition index, which we're trying to get up to 50 from 34 as an average right now. 100 is the best. This program might get us to 50 in the near term. The bioenergy project that I focused on earlier, I think that can only grow and expand. It's initially in pilot project phase, but I think it will prove itself to be exactly what we're hoping it is. And it's a win-win situation when we can clear the dead trees out of creeks and streams in our forests, and at the same time create clean energy, which we can sell to PG&E around the grid, is a win-win. The housing element, which the county is working on, is essential in terms of anticipating the future and growth that will happen here. People will come here even if the homes aren't here. They'll just make the homes more expensive. And again, circling back to the general plan and the local area plans, that is the vision for the future through 2050. And it's only 2024 now, so there's a lot of time to focus on that, but it's got to be a priority for not only this generation of supervisors, but the next.
Thank you. Next question, we start with John. What do you see as the challenges to and opportunities for agriculture in Lake County?
Well, I think agriculture has a proud tradition. If you don't mind, I've got some cheat sheets here somewhere, but ag is the number one driver after tourism of the Lake County economy. And it's very important. It's changing and evolving. It's not walnuts much anymore. Still pears, wine grapes, of course, but there's also cannabis now. And while that's not a legal crop, it's still something that is permitted to be grown here and in the state of California. And as a planning commissioner, I could really bore you with all the ins and outs of how we've gotten to where we are with cannabis now. But it's a reality. And at a Farm Bureau forum in the previous cycle, the primary cycle, we were asked about what is the most important crop in the county now. And the only crop that's growing, that's continuing to expand, is cannabis. I know that frustrates a lot of people. I'm not just advocating cannabis for the sake of cannabis, but I think it was even included in the crop report, the ag crop report for the county this year. So it's a factor and it needs to be considered. But working backwards, I'd say it's cannabis, wine grapes, pears, and to a lesser extent walnuts now. And the more processing we can do of all those things, grapes, cannabis, and pears in the county, keeps that money in the county rather than having it be sent out of the county for processing and not bringing those dollars home where we really deserve to have them.
Thank you. Helen, what do you see as the challenges to and opportunities for agriculture in Lake County?
On last Friday, so Thursday I was at the Ag Symposium, the Science Symposium, and on Friday I was invited to the Women for Agriculture, and it was a full day. It was amazing, and it's really sad how much our crops have reduced here in Lake County over the years. We used to be the biggest grower of pears in the country, and shipping them not just throughout the United States, but around the world. And we were at Scully's Packing, thank you, Scully's Packing Plant, and we took a tour of the orchards, and it was pretty amazing what they're doing. I know I didn't see cannabis on the charts that we were given for the top crops there, but we did see wine grapes have really made a move here in Lake County. I think they've always been part of the Napa Valley as far as improving their wines. They've bought up here quite a bit over the last 100 years. But I think that the pears have really dropped down, so have walnuts, and they gave us graphs as far as how much land has actually been turned from agriculture, the crops, into other things. And I think preserving our agriculture is going to be huge. When people are not making a living on their agriculture, and I know that the cannabis has really dropped down in the pricing, so they're not doing as well as it was originally predicted. But when they're not able to, a lot of these people are entrepreneurs, and they want to be able to expand and do something else, and to kind of help mitigate their money flow. And I've had them coming to me and stating that the county has put restrictions on what they can do. So that's something we need to look at to allow them to make a living.
Thank you. Next question, we start with Helen. During Tuesday's Board of Supervisors meeting, the board heard the need for housing for probationers, because 30% or more of that population are experiencing housing insecurity or homelessness. No specific site was discussed, but would you support this type of housing development in your district? Why or why not?
You know, before you start building more, you hear me? Of the low-income housing, I think there needs to be a survey. A lot of that is contract people coming in from outside, and our people here are not getting to build. We've stopped many of our contractors because of the price of the building here, the permit process. And I think before, a lot of times what I'm understanding is happening is they're building X amount of homes, like say 200 or 400 homes for the low income. And that's great. Is there a need for it? There needs to be numbers to support what we're going to be doing as far as low income. And as far as the permit process, that I know that last year, I think we built something like 28 homes countywide. They're not building homes here, and we need to ask ourselves why. What's stopping it besides the prices of the lumber? And we need to find out how the county can step up and make it easier on these contractors to build middle income housing. What I have had told to me was the professional people need to have houses. They can't find enough housing for teachers, for doctors, for nurses, for the people in the workers that are keeping this economy going. We need to also be looking at that and looking at them and how we can make their lives easier and allow our contractors to continue to build. One of the things I would like to see is, I know that we're supposed to be getting a new courthouse. And when that happens, I would like to have all the permits on one floor so that it's one-stop shopping to make it easier for people to do that, rather than having to run across town, stop at the courthouse, head over to Blevins Street and continue that. So it might speed up the process and make it easier for people, and that's one of the suggestions I would make.
Thank you. John, did you want me to repeat the?
I think I've got it,
Okay.
thanks. And I'm going to keep most of my focus in this answer on homelessness, which was the point of the question. There's plenty of other housing issues we can still discuss this evening. But our county, like so many other parts of California, suffers from chronic levels of homelessness. As a planning commissioner, I've supported the creation of seasonal warming centers with extended hours as needed, evacuation centers, and additional transitional housing options, accompanied by all of the necessary wraparound services to address mental and behavioral health and addiction issues. The county can successfully collaborate with and support the work of private sector and nonprofit entities like Adventist Health and Clear Lake-based Hope Rising, which have a multiplier effect on the county's own efforts and policies. The annual county point-in-time count of sheltered and unsheltered homeless persons was conducted on a night in January, as it is every year, and it'll be interesting and informative to see what the results of this year's count is. I haven't been able to find that number, but in previous years, the numbers always sounded small to me. I believe the number of people in such need is much larger than just 300 or 400 people. So that's important. Helen touched on the need for affordable housing. We need affordable housing, we need workforce housing, and we need market rate housing, and we need a combination of that. I've heard some awful things, especially expressed during the primary campaign, about how affordable housing is built here only to have migrants, illegals, shipped in from all over the Bay Area to immediately occupy those homes. There's a real need for affordable housing in Clear Lake and throughout the county, but there's as much of a need for workforce housing and market rate housing. And one way to attract housing and businesses is to be technology ready for the 21st century. Build out broadband so that you can have internet access and work from home and not worry about not having a way to know when there's a fire coming your way because you've only got a landline. So there's a lot of work that can be done, but I appreciate a question about the homeless and a very in-need population.
Thank you. I had a request for a brief bathroom break. Is that okay with everybody?
Take a number.
Okay. Okay, everyone, we're gonna get started. We have several more questions. We'll try to keep this on track.
It's only 7.
So thank you, everyone, for coming back.
And my dictionary. It's going to take 20 minutes.
Okay, so let's get back into the questions. The next question we're going to resume, and we'll start with John. He will answer it first. Please state your position on legal cannabis.
Pretty correct. I support legal cannabis. It's the voters of Lake County voted overwhelmingly in favor of being able to grow and to do commercial grows as well. And that was one of the first things that we had to tackle when I was a planning commissioner. That group of commissioners was actually part of the group that wrote the very first ordinance, and it was an arduous, complicated process. And once we finally had certain portions of it in place, the state would change its rules, and we'd have to so-called harmonize everything in our document again with what the state has just changed or not. It's the only crop that the Planning Commission regulates, and it's always felt a little weird regulating a crop as a planning commissioner, but it's just the weird status that cannabis continues to have. But I also support legal cannabis because it makes it easier for law enforcement to narrow the field and to focus on the illegal grows and not and know that the permitted grows, for the most part, are being done properly. There's a planning commission meeting tomorrow, and we're actually going to be considering revoking a permit for bad practices which were discovered on what are annual inspections of legal grows. So we'll crack down on even the legal grows when they've taken advantage of the permit and aren't doing the right thing. But it's here. The market has crashed in many respects. There's a glut of cannabis in the state of California, but Lake County District 1 is also doing some great work with processing, and that's for things like lotions and ointments and gummies, the whole thing. And it's important that we have that facility, that capability here in Lake County, because if you just send all that stuff out of county, the money doesn't stay here. And so with that added layer, we are more or less vertically integrated like any other good business model would be.
Thank you. Helen, what's your position on legal cannabis?
Legal cannabis. You know, I think that there's some positives on it. I've been late to the table with the cannabis. I was not in favor. However, I have seen some positive things. For instance, being able to reduce the amount of illegal is huge because of the chemicals and stuff that they were using on the illegal grows. There's fewer of them, and as they're busting them, I think that's a good thing. I think that you need to think real strong about where they're placed. I know that it's now part of our landscape, and we're going to go with it, but it's also offensive to many people. And we need to keep that in mind and make sure that we're not kind of just handing out those permits. I believe that the statistics were something like out of 186 applications, there were only 3 that were denied in the county. And those 3 just happened to have a lot of opposition. So that kind of raises a little bit of a flag with me. I think that we do need to regulate it, and so there you go.
Thank you.
Are you okay?
Claude, did you do that? Okay. Next question, we'll start with Helen. We're doing several more questions about cannabis. How would you improve code enforcement to accomplish the elimination or reduction of illegal cannabis grows that are polluting streams, abandoning guard dogs after harvest, and generally misusing water?
Okay, is that code enforcement or is that law enforcement? That would be my question. I think the stronger hand, I would go for the stronger hand first. And rather than, if at all possible, on that, they do have more teeth. And that's the direction I would kind of like to go. And I think the encouraging neighbors to make the complaints, and when those complaints are made, I have talked with people actually in this room that have made the complaints, and when you go through code enforcement, apparently they're required by law to give the illegal growers a heads up. Like, what is it, a week or 2 weeks or something? I don't remember.
10 days.
10 days. 10-day head up that we're gonna be coming in to check you out. And then if they say, no, you can't enter the property, well, you can't enter the property. So obviously that gives them a chance to move the product. So I'm thinking perhaps get the law enforcement involved and let them go in, and they don't have to give the heads up. So I would probably encourage that and see what can be done, because I think it's ridiculous.
Do you want to repeat it? Not at all. How would you improve code enforcement to accomplish the elimination or reduction of illegal cannabis grows that are polluting streams, abandoning guard dogs after harvest, and generally misusing water?
Right, well, first of all, we need more enforcement officers. That would make the job a lot easier. Every legally permitted grow in the county has to be visited annually by planning commission staff with one enforcement officer. So they're visiting grows almost every day. And that's important. But we often hear at planning commission meetings about smells and sounds and trucks and culverts being destroyed. Oftentimes those are illegal grows, and that's not well understood in that neighborhood or community. And if you think that there's an illegal grow in your neighborhood or in your backyard, or that people are paying people to allow them to grow on your property or their property, report that to the sheriff's office. That's illegal and it should be reported. Code enforcement is there, of course, to investigate odors and suspicious things like that, but the number of legal grows that are guilty of diverting a stream or using heavy toxic chemicals and pesticides, that's just not the reality. And like I said earlier, this makes it easier for law enforcement, in fact, to narrow their scope and to focus on the really bad actors and to make sure that they stop what they're doing. But yeah, illegal grows have to be reported and have to be dealt with by law enforcement. Code enforcement officers are sworn, they're allowed to carry a weapon and that kind of thing. But they technically don't deal with the real bad actors, which is what, in my opinion, Elizabeth was describing.
Next question, we'll start with John. Can you give some of the differences between legal and illegal cannabis and their impacts on the community?
Well, that's an interesting question. Cannabis itself is the same, whether it's grown legally or illegally, although you can also be very confident that in a permitted environment that cannabis is clean, because that gets tested regularly, and if there's the smallest bit of pesticide or the hint of something like that, it's worthless. So in order to keep it clean, it's what keeps the product, viable and that kind of thing. The other part of the question was?
And their impacts.
Right. As the commercial market gets more and more tested, some people are leaving the market altogether, growers, and are going back into the dark. And some people, I think, because that's how it was for generations, are still comfortable buying something from a grower they've always known, or it's just simpler that way. But again, if you support the illegal market, you're supporting something that's wrong, that's hurting the county, that's hurting the success of our legal permitted processes and applications. And law enforcement always comes first in that context.
Thank you. Helen, can you give some of the differences between legal and illegal cannabis and their impacts on the community?
Again, I'm late to the party on cannabis. That's not within my wheelhouse. However, I have been learning about it. I do have some friends that are legal growers. And so I think that there is some benefits to it. With kids, it's been tested with autism, and there's some things I would much rather have something that's safe, that's grown, that can help medically, than something chemically changed that might have a higher risk. So it's not that I'm completely against the cannabis, I just think that it needs to be regulated. As far as the illegal grows, I have heard the horror stories of the chemicals, the problems with the stuff in the lakes, or the waterways, and stealing water, and et cetera, for those illegal grows. And again, with that, I want to see it eradicated. With the permitted grows, I think we need to regulate it and make sure that they do say what they're doing. And I'm glad, I know that there was recently somebody that was taking bribes that did get busted on that. And so I I'm hoping that that shuts that window down too.
Thank you. Next question, we start with Helen. What is your reaction to the recent arrest of a county code enforcement officer connected to cannabis operations? And do you think this department's operations need to be reviewed and revised?
Absolutely correct. I think that with your code enforcement, they don't make a lot of money. And they're dealing with crops that are worth millions of dollars. And so I think the situation's kind of ripe for corruption in that essence. I do think it needs to be looked at, and I'm not quite sure what the solution is, whether it be body cams or what. But yeah, I wasn't really surprised. I've heard about that for years, about some corruption and within. So yeah.
Thank you, John. What's your reaction to that arrest, and do you think the department's operations need to be reviewed and revised?
Sure, I think it was appalling that a sworn county employee, an officer, would abuse his position and essentially intimidate people who are growing legally and coerce them money or actual content, actual cannabis, which is obviously resold somewhere else again. The packaging of that cannabis sounded like it looked legitimate with the tracking number and the stamp and all of that thing, although you can buy those kinds of packages on Amazon now to make it look like what you've packaged is the real thing. So it gets hazier and hazier. But he has to be dealt with, with the strong arm of the law. And whenever something like this happens, I think automatically a review of practices and behaviors with policies within the department need to be reviewed and revised as necessary. I have an enormous amount of confidence in Maria Turner, the director of the Community Development Department, and she has really gotten the department back on track and improved morale dramatically. And you can't predict everything, and this guy needs to go away and be gone and out of Lake County. But I have not heard of ongoing corruption of enforcement officers in the area of cannabis at all since I've been a planning commissioner until this most recent case hit the news.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to head into this final set of questions here. I know everybody's been patiently sitting here, so we got several more, but not that many. Starting with John, what plans do you have to build more housing?
May I go to my cheat sheet? I'm sorry.
That's a paper teleprompter.
Okay. We have to create more housing. It's essential for this coming decade of growth. And I think all of the things that I talked about with the housing administrator are part of that. From identifying places where we can build, identifying developers in and out of the county who will want to come in here and actually build those houses. The Planning Commission is sort of like a canary in a coal mine. We're the first people to see development interest at the countywide level, and we don't see that much of it. With one example that has occurred in the last decade or so is Valley Oaks, a subdivision approved adjacent to Hidden Valley Lake. That will provide, if fully built out, up to 350 units of housing. Quinnock, which we haven't talked about yet this evening, will be building up to 500 units of workforce housing on site and in Middletown. And that's a category of housing that we need badly. And so I would support those kinds of programs. I would support being broadband ready, as I said before, and ready for the 21st century, because businesses want to know that they can plug in and be ready on day one. And they want to come to an area and invest in and put a stake in the ground where there are people. And without housing, we don't have those people, and without that, we don't have interested businesses because there's no one there to buy their wares or to shop in their stores or whatever it might be. So there are interconnections here, and it's important that we find all of the housing funding. The Housing Trust Fund from the state is probably the #1 benefactor in terms of grant monies and that kind of thing. But we also have to make it more attractive for developers, and perhaps consider some tax credits, that kind of thing. But we have to get creative, and we have to build more housing.
Thank you. Helen, what plans do you have to build more housing?
we need to first see what it is that's stopping it. And I believe that it's not just interest rates, and it's not just the expense of it, but also the complications. A lot of things are making it more expensive that we can do something about here in the county, make it easier. We need to be able to have our local contractors working here locally instead of driving over the hill. I would like to see that. I would also, on the project, the Gwinnett project, I would like to see some higher end jobs being offered first to our people here in Lake County, where we need, where they need the people to work. I don't want just the people from outside the county coming in to take a lot of those better paying jobs. I want to try to keep them here in Lake County. As far as, what was the question?
That was it, it was short.
What was it?
How would you build more housing?
Or build more housing. I think simplifying it and making it easier here in the county for people to do it. And talking to the contractors, finding out what it is that is keeping them from building.
Thank you. Next question, we start with Helen. District 1 includes a significant portion, in excess of 2,000 people, of the south end and southwestern portion of Clear Lake, including both residential and commercial properties, including those on Clear Lake. How important do you consider this northernmost part of your district, and how would you work to best represent it?
I think it's vital. I think it's vital, and I'm pretty excited about it, to be honest. I've been down there during the primaries and walking some of the streets and meeting some of the people. I know that there is a big issue there right now it hit the papers during the heavy rains. So I know that infrastructure is something that does need to be taken seriously in that area. I think that they have a great manager and city council, so I would like to work closely with them. I have been to a number of their meetings during the summer because I do work. I do, for those of you that don't know, I have Owen Ranch, so I had to stop going to a lot of the meetings there throughout the county during the summer because I was working. Yep, I have to work. Like I had said earlier, I am turning the reins over to my daughter, so to speak, for the ranch. However, right now I'm still working some. And so no, I have enjoyed seeing the people, some of the people I grew up with that live in Clear Lake. And I'm all about the people, I'm all about the kids. We were fortunate enough to have in Clear Lake, they have the new youth center. And they came out to the ranch and did, we just had a blast. So all of the kids went riding. They did, we cooked s'mores. Some of the adults said they'd never had s'mores before. So they cooked dinner. We did some planting 101, and I can't remember, we might have did go roping, I can't remember, but we had a blast anyway. So I'm excited about working with this end of the county, this northern area for me, it'd be northern, and no, I've been having a great time.
Thank you. John, the northernmost part of the district, how would you best represent it?
It's as important as any other part of the district, even though it's just a slice of the southern part of Clear Lake. And there's a history to why that's there. This is not a new thing. This wasn't just added to the district recently. I've always been told, and in fact by Supervisor Sabatier as well, that the decision to include a slice of Clear Lake is, there's a slice in all 5 of the supervisors' districts. And that's to give each district a sense of ownership of the lake and a literal physical connection to the lake, which makes perfect sense to me. And it's an interesting community because it's an incorporated city and it has its own infrastructure and city council and all the rest. But it's an important section of District 1, and their voice and concerns are just as legitimate and important as Lower Lakes, Hidden Valley Lakes, Anderson Springs, or Middletown. And I'm happy to be involved in walking in Clear Lake regularly. Mayor Claffey was kind enough to walk neighborhoods in that part of the district during the primary. And having a relationship with the leadership of the city that's part of the district that I hope to represent is essential. I'm proud that Mr. Claffey has endorsed me, and so has Dirk Slutin, another member of the Clear Lake City Council. but it's as legitimate a part of District 1, no matter its size, as any other portion of the district.
Thank you. Next question. You just touched on a little on some of this. We'll start with John. What formal endorsements from organizations do you have for your candidacy?
Yeah, I'm proud of the endorsements I have. Many of them are related to labor and unions. The North Bay Building Trades Council, the North Bay Labor Council, Operating Engineers Number 3, the Electrical Workers 551, Teamsters, SEIU 2015. Some of the people are in the room today from SEIU 2015. SEIU United Healthcare Workers, the Lake County Association of Realtors, the Sierra Club, the Lake County Record Bee, and the Lake County Democrats and the California Democratic Party. And I mentioned those unions, and I'm proud of that, is because these are unions that have members that live here and work here and will be part of the crew of Teamsters that build out Gwinnett and the many thousands of jobs that will come from that over the next 10, 15 years. So there's a connection to my non-personal supporters that I'm very proud of, and I'm continuing to seek endorsements all the time.
Thank you. Helen, what formal endorsements from organizations do you have for your candidacy?
You know, one of the things that we decided on with our campaign was we wanted to represent the people. So I have sought out, we haven't really looked much for entities. What we're looking for is people in the community, and that's what we're looking for. We want your endorsement. And so we do have these at the back table. Anybody that would like to be on this list, we do have it on Facebook and my webpage as well. Please let us know.
Thank you. Okay, so this is going to be the final question I'm going to ask before we go into closing statements. And I think there may be a few of you who might want to take a few minutes afterward to talk to the two candidates in case you have a few more questions for them. I'm sure that two of them would be welcome. Willing to stay? Can we twist your arm?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So let me start with a final question. We'll start with Helen, and this is just a broad question. What is your vision for Lake County, and specifically for the South County in District 1?
My vision. Well, I think it needs to be your vision. We had a great turnout at the area plan here when we were discussing the update of the Lower Lake and the Middletown area plans, and that's what that was about. I obviously have blood in the game here. I've been raised here. One of the things that kept coming up at both was they wanted to keep this small town environment. They wanted to make it feel like a home community. And that's one of the things that I keep dear to my heart. You can't break down out on Highway 29 and you're not going to have to wait more than just a few minutes before somebody's going to come by that knows you and is going to pull over and help you. You feel safe. The safety here is huge, and that's something we need to continue with. I want to keep the small town atmosphere. I want to keep the community atmosphere where we help one another. We don't need the drama, we don't need the crime, and we need to kind of keep that out. So that's what I'm supporting. I'm supporting our law enforcement big time. I'm supporting our fire departments. My son-in-law's a fireman. We've had Robert Rumfelt, the highway's named after him, that's my cousin. So we're all about the small town atmosphere.
Thank you. John, what's your vision for Lake County and specifically for the South County of District 1?
I do agree that a vision has to be a shared vision and not a vision that's imposed on a community or a district or an entire county. And that's why I'm so enthusiastic about the Lake County 2050 project. And I encourage everybody again to go to that website, look into it, understand it, take the survey, and participate in these upcoming conversations and meetings about the local area plans as well as the general plan. It's a vision that I think the Board of Supervisors is obligated to facilitate and to help grow because we are the leadership of the county and we want to represent the interests of our districts well, and that means we have to have a close connection to the people in those districts. Vibrant businesses, full schools, safe streets and roads, high density in town, in downtowns, low density outside of town. And I think that's one of the surest ways to maintain our very cherished rural and hometown culture and hometown vibe. So I think looking forward, it's a question of knowing we're doing what we're doing to take care of the lake, to defend and protect and grow our tourist industry as well as our unique environment and character. And all of those go hand in hand with a community consensus, which for the first time the county is working to put together with the Vision 2020 plan. And I applaud the Board of Supervisors for taking it from zero to the point we're at now in the course of about 6 years.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to do closing statements. This is just the candidate's opportunity just to touch on anything they'd like to touch on. They've obviously covered a lot, but this is just their time to speak about what's important to them. We're going in reverse alphabetical order, so we are starting with Helen.
Well, I want to thank everybody again for coming out tonight. I'm glad to see all of you here. I'm glad to see that you're interested. I want to thank the Lower Lake Action Group for putting this on. I'd like to thank Elizabeth for moderating, Monica. I'd like to thank Bruno for videoing, and Russ, I know you had a big hand in this, and Teresa for all of the refreshments. You guys knocked it out of the park. So I appreciate all of you. As far as I go, I'm, again, not a public speaker. I have not been in politics. I have served on many boards. I put together nonprofits. Primarily, I focus on the kids. My vision here is your vision. I will also want to see the waters protected. That's probably our most important asset. Currently, one of the things, the reason I'm leaving my ranch to get into this is because some of the things that are going on, I don't approve of. One of them is the project at Quinnock. It's not that I'm opposed to the whole project. I'm opposed to them taking the water from Middletown out to keep their lake full. That's what I'm opposed to. So I don't want to see that happen, and we are currently, again, chewing bubblegum and walking at the same time. We're seeing what we can do to try to stop that from happening. Anybody that would like to know more about me, I actually do better one-on-one and than I am up here in front of everybody. Don't be afraid to give me a call, because I do want to know your concerns. I do want to know what your needs are. And if you would like to endorse me or something, let us know. And I'm all about coming by and having a conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. John.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you for moderating so fairly tonight. Thank you, Bruno, for your second job of the day, filming us tonight. Thank you to everybody who came here. You have to take time out of your busy days to do this. And as supervisor, it's my job to show up. You came here because you wanted to, and because you cared, and because you're interested. And that's the kind of vibe and the kind of personality that I want to maintain here in Lake County. It's a spectacular, unforgettable place, and we need to make it as popular as any major attraction in California. Clear Lake deserves that, and we deserve that. We deserve the success that comes along with that, the security that comes along with that, and it's something that's within our reach. And I hope to be the one to help District 1 and the county get to that point, because we live in a remarkable area that's unique in so many ways, and there's so much that we need to treasure and protect and maintain there. And that means everybody working together. I'm proud of, in terms of my campaign, it's all volunteer, it's diverse, we're inclusive, we embrace the entire community, including the tribes, and I think we have a lot to learn from the original dwellers of this region as well. We're all part of the county spirit and ethic, and I'm just grateful that I think I have the kind of background and experience and the temperament and the time to do the job right and to be available to you whenever the need may come up. My pledge is that my door is open to all the people of District 1, regardless of who at the end of the day you vote for. Thank you very much.
Thank you both very much. Thank you, Helen and John. Really appreciate hearing from you directly. Say hi to Kai for us. Thank you, Russ. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Bruno and Sam. Thank you, Mike. Mike made all that food. At least I think he did. Anyway, thank you everybody for coming.